Here's a thought. When I listen to music, am I influenced by and maybe even tricked by the visual elements? How much does the look of the musician or their personality or their album cover artwork alter my perception of the actual music? The answer is a lot, and I wish it weren't true. And I'll tell you why in this week's conceptual idea thought of the week. By the way, this is a segment from The Carl King Show. If you enjoy this video, remember to like and subscribe and send us burritos. Now, you might not agree with me about this, but I have something to say about music, and that is, music is not a visual art. Because unlike painting or sculpture, we can't see it. But here are some things that we can see, and we trick ourselves into believing that they are music. People dressing in wild costumes, dancing and jumping around on a stage, making faces, swinging their hair around, bright flashing lights, pyrotechnics, and also the worst thing ever invented, crowds of people. Well, those are visuals, and it's okay if you like visuals, but they're not music. And sure, music is also happening. It's part of the multimedia, but if it were simply music, you could just stay home and close your eyes and enjoy it with headphones. Now, this should be obvious. Of course, music is not a visual art, but it's not obvious because we forget. And most of us will go right back to assuming music is all those other visual things. It's easy to be fooled by marketing. I sometimes wonder, as a music listener, how much am I influenced by and even tricked by these visual elements? How much does the look of the musician or their personality or even their album cover artwork alter my perception of the music? And the answer is a lot. And I wish it weren't true because I like to think I'm a purist. I like to think, hey, I only care about the music itself. And so I intentionally resist and ignore all of that other stuff. I think to myself, does this piece of music actually sound good to me? Or am I only impressed by what the musician looks like while playing it? Because it shouldn't matter. We are all suckers for this, but I believe visuals are far more often than not a distraction from the sounds. So in my mind, I do my best to put visual entertainment over here and the music over there. Now, why does this matter, Carl? Why be such a snob or a fundamentalist about the meaning of the word music? Well, what if the same thing happened with the word writing? What if we had events where Stephen King went up on a stage and sat at a typewriter and clacked away, as loud music blasted from speakers and colors flashed on massive screens. And for some reason, we still called it writing. Because, hey, writing is happening, but that's just not the correct word for it. There should be a different word. So why do we add all of this visual stuff into music, but still call it music? Well, maybe because the truth is that music isn't good enough on its own. Because you and I live in a visual world, and sight is our most powerful sense. So unless you close your eyes at a concert, there will be visuals. You're going to look at whatever is moving or whatever seems to be making the sounds. And musicians don't have much choice but to be visual. If you're a musician, and even if you don't care about visuals, people are going to watch you. So that brings up the basic question about your costume. What should you wear when playing music for people? Should you dress the same as you do every day in a t-shirt and shorts like I do, like a slob? Or dress up a little bit in a way that's not so distracting? maybe button-up shirt and pants, or maybe the opposite extreme. You could wear a horror mask and a clown suit like early Mr. Bungle. Or what if you use your visual appearance to help communicate the music? Aha! Maybe that's the answer. Visuals could support the music. A virtuoso pianist from the 1800s tried that. His name was Franz Liszt, and he figured out that if he turned his piano sideways so his fingers were visible, the audience went crazy. And he was quite a shredder, one of the fastest pianists who ever lived. And then he took it a step further. He made faces, he flailed his long hair around, and the rock star was officially born. His audience grew and became a phenomenon called Listomania, kind of like Beatlemania. Audiences swarmed him, and women fought to get locks of his hair, and fans collected his cigar butts and broken piano strings. And was it because his music was great? Honestly, it was great. He was a total virtuoso, one of the greatest classical composers. But no, it was that other stuff. Well, what if so many musicians do that other stuff that it takes over and becomes more important than the music? And sure enough, after Franz Liszt, the other stuff crept in. Musicians who put on a visual show got rewarded. More listeners, more fame, more money. But the music became a smaller and smaller part of the equation. Well, fast forward almost 200 years, now the music is pre-recorded, there's smoke everywhere, and a giant video screen above the band. It's like being inside a music video. In reality, the music video is on tour, and the band just goes with it. Rather than the visuals serving the music becomes just the soundtrack and serves all the visuals. In fact, we can even remove the musicians entirely. No actual live music has to be made, like at probably the most watched show of the year, the Super Bowl. You can just unplug the guitars and dance around. The show will continue, no problem. But what happens if you remove the show? Well, let's find out. In 2007, Joshua Bell, one of the greatest violinists in the world, put on a baseball hat and took his multi-million-dollar Stradivarius into a subway station and played by himself for 45 minutes. 1,097 people walked by, and only one person stopped and realized what was happening. Why? Well, I think it's for two important reasons. Number one, no one cares about classical music, so no one even knows who Joshua Bell is. And two, we've been desensitized, so music by itself is just not interesting enough. Without the right visuals, without the show, even the best musicians in the world will be ignored. Well, Miley Cyrus put on a disguise and did the same thing. But guess what? She drew a huge crowd because she's a visual entertainer. So here's what I think went wrong with music. You can think of music as a living creature that needed to find a way to survive. So it has adapted by attaching visuals to itself, kind of like a hermit crab. In a way, you could say music has evolved, but it's through using a crutch. And in the process, it has become something that it wasn't intended to be. It's more like it actually misvolved. So that's where we're at. And what can we do about it? Maybe something drastic. All the musicians could form a union and refuse to use visuals. We could go on strike. But there's only 12 or 13 paying gigs in the world, so most musicians are already technically unemployed. The few who do work in music are still so broke and so desperate for work, they'll be as visual as you want. And as long as the creation of music is filtered through capitalist incentives, that's the way it's going to be. So maybe the change will need to happen on an individual level. So what can you and I do? First of all, remind yourself that music is music. It's an art form made of sound, and it's not anything else. Don't watch music videos, and close your eyes when listening. Second, if what you do for a living is mostly visual entertainment, with some music added in, don't call yourself a musician. Call yourself a visual entertainer. There's nothing wrong with that. Third, support music that is just music. Look beyond a musician's ability to entertain you visually, because the music they make is all that matters. We should reward musicians even if they don't put on a show. And finally, maybe the world of hyper-visual entertainment is ready for a backlash. Maybe we need a new movement of anti-visual musicians. Musicians who refuse to dance or make faces or be performative in any way. Our movement would just need a cool name. Well, let's see. It's kind of like how vegetarians are trying to change things by only eating plants. So what would the equivalent be? Vegetables, vegetarian. Music, musician. Musician. I think that works. So from now on, that's what we'll be. We'll call ourselves musicians. Musician. Oh, dang it. Well, that's it for this week's conceptual idea thought of the week. If you like this video, support the creation of more by joining my Patreon for $1 or $5 a month. That's patreon.com/Carl King.